The knock on my door wasn't just loud, it was the kind of aggressive pounding you hear in movies right before someone busts in, like they were there to take something, not just deliver bad news. And I'll never forget the look on Margaret Winter's face, our self-proclaimed queen, HOA president, standing there with her mouth twisted into a smile so sour it could turn milk. Before I even got out a hello, she jabbed a manila envelope into my chest, hard enough that I actually had to catch my balance, and she spat out violation notice like she'd been waiting all week to say it, her voice dripping with satisfaction. You have 72 hours to comply, or we'll begin eviction proceedings. Yeah, that happened. I just stared at her, and then at the envelope thinking eviction for what? She jerked her thumb back toward my yard, almost like she was afraid to point directly at it. Your fence. That monstrosity you painted. It's completely unacceptable and violates HOA Code Section 12.3. And you gotta picture this, my fence, freshly painted slate gray, to match the new trim I'd just put on the house. It looked sharp, neat, nothing flashy, not some neon eyesore. I'd spent 3 months fixing up that old house since I moved into Pine Ridge Estates. The fence was the final touch. But now it was apparently a monstrosity. I tried to keep my cool, so I said, it's gray. A neutral gray. It matches my house. She puffed up like a pigeon and barked, it's not approved beige. All fences in Pine Ridge must be painted in approved beige shade number 274. This is clearly stated in our bylaws. At that, I actually had to stifle a laugh. I held up my hand and said, can you show me where that's written? I read the bylaws before I moved in. I don't remember a fence color list. She got so mad her face turned a shade of eggplant. Are you questioning my authority? I've been HOA president for 8 years, she snapped. I just kept my voice calm and steady. I'm just asking to see the rule, Margaret. Surely you've got a copy of the bylaws handy. Well, that did it. She huffed and stormed off, hollering that the office was closed, but I'd better repaint that fence beige or else. Standing there with the envelope, I hadn't even opened it yet, but honestly at that point I knew this was war. What Margaret didn't know was I'd spent 15 years as a compliance officer at a Fortune 500. So yeah, I know a thing or two about rules, especially the ones people make up as they go. The next morning, I formally requested a complete up-to-date copy of the HOA bylaws, specifically asking for anything about fence colors. The answer came from Margaret's assistant, Linda, a woman who always looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. She called voice barely above a whisper and said, Mrs. Winter says the bylaws are being updated and aren't available right now. You know what I mean, red flag city. So I said, that's funny because state law says HOAs have to provide bylaws within 5 business days when a homeowner asks, should I call the state oversight board? There was a long pause, then a nervous, let me see what I can do. And she hung up. 2 days later, I get a stack of papers that looked like they'd gone through a couple decades and at least one bad fax machine. Sure enough, there was a section about fence colors handwritten in a different color pen dated just last week and marked retroactively effective immediately. Right, sure. Turns out Margaret was running her own little fiefdom, and I wasn't the only one on her list. That evening at the mailbox, my neighbor, Robert Chen, was shaking his head, telling me how she fined him $500 because his trash can sat at the curb for 10 minutes after pickup. And when I complained, he said she threatened to put a lien on my house. Another neighbor, Sarah Martinez, shared how her daughter's chalk hopscotch squares on the driveway had been called vandalism, and Margaret tried to find them. When Sarah pointed out the rain would wash it away, Margaret had the nerve to add a new rule banning temporary markings on driveways. You see the pattern, right? New families, younger folks, anybody who dared speak up, Margaret came for them. But what really got my attention was when Robert asked if I'd ever seen the HOA's budget. They keep saying there's no money for playground repairs, but dues keep going up. Where's it all going? That one innocent question sent me down the rabbit hole. The next 2 weeks, I turned full detective. I requested 5 years' worth of HOA minutes, financials, and enforcement records. When the office stalled, I dropped the phrase, state transparency laws. And suddenly the wheels turned. What I found was, well, even for HOA drama, it was something else. The meeting notes showed votes passing with more ayes than there were board members present. Miscellaneous admin expenses had ballooned from $2,000 a year to over $20,000. and 90% of the fines in the past 3 years, all to people who'd bought after 2020. I put it all in a spreadsheet: violations dates, who got fined, public records on who'd bought when, even basic demographics. The trend was so clear it hurt. But a trend wasn't proof I needed something concrete. That's when the real twist landed. Linda, Margaret's assistant, called me from her personal phone. "I can't take it anymore," she said, actually shaking. "She's making me backdate letters, forge signatures, the whole deal. I have copies." So, yeah, we met at a coffee shop outside the neighborhood where she handed me a thumb drive with every dirty secret forged compliance letters, emails between Margaret and the board plotting how to encourage certain residents to move out, even receipts for personal expenses like a trip to Hawaii billed as a property management conference. And the kicker: emails and invoices showing kickbacks from the landscaping company, tens of thousands of dollars worth, all laundered through fake contracts. I compiled everything: over 100 pages of reports, timelines, emails, copies of checks. I wasn't just after Margaret anymore. I wanted the whole rotten system gone. I sent the full report to the state HOA regulatory board, the district attorney, and every single homeowner in Pine Ridge. No more secrets. And man, did that blow up fast. Within 48 hours, state investigators swooped in and started hauling out boxes of records. Margaret, in all her glory, tried to physically block the door, shrieking about witch hunts and community values, while the rest of the board melted away. It was honestly kind of a spectacle: neighbors peeking out windows, some filming on their phones, others just shaking their heads. The Vice President, Tom Bradley, tried to claim he never read anything Margaret put in front of him. The treasurer, Janet Phillips, said she just signed what she was told to sign. The evidence was so overwhelming that the state board held an emergency meeting 2 weeks later, packed house people clutching copies of every fine and letter they'd ever gotten. The lead investigator, Patricia Walsh, didn't bother sugarcoating it. We found systematic fraud, embezzlement, and discrimination by the Pine Ridge Estates HOA board. Effective immediately, the entire board is suspended pending a criminal investigation. You should have heard the place. Some people gasped, a bunch just started clapping. Margaret shot up screaming, "You can't do this. I gave 8 years to this community. That fence is still in violation." Patricia gave her a look colder than January. "Mrs. Winters, you may want to contact a lawyer. You're facing charges of embezzlement, fraud, and violations of fair housing laws." The criminal case moved even faster. The DA filed charges: 15 counts of embezzlement, 22 counts of fraud, 3 counts of falsifying official documents. Margaret's bail was set at $50,000. The board members got hit with lesser charges, but still, no one was walking away clean. They uncovered over $60,000 in kickbacks alone. Every single fine from the last 3 years was voided. The state put the HOA under direct supervision and scheduled a special election for a brand new board with real oversight this time. And as for my fence, during the meeting, Patricia made a show of it. There's no legitimate rule regarding fence colors. Mr. Davidson's fence is perfectly compliant. In fact, it looks quite nice. The whole room laughed, and even I had to smile. Margaret turned red, then white, then back to red like a broken stoplight. That was the moment I knew justice was finally catching up. 3 months later, Margaret pled guilty to 8 counts of fraud and embezzlement. They dropped the rest in exchange for restitution. She got 4 years with 2 suspended for good behavior if she paid it all back. When the judge read the sentence, she just collapsed sobbing while her lawyer tried to keep her upright. The rest of the board: probation, community service, and lifetime bans from serving on any HOA ever again. Some say it was harsh. Me, I call it overdue. So now, for the first time since moving in, Pine Ridge feels like a real neighborhood again. People wave, kids play. We painted a mural on the old playground fence, gray, of course. But you know what? Sometimes I still catch people arguing at the mailbox about what really counts as community values. Did I go too far? Was it justice or just revenge? I'll leave that one up to you. Drop a comment. Tell me what you'd have done. Where you draw the line on HOA power, and what justice really means when the people in charge forget who they work for.